Well, welcome back to the weekend debate. Well, yeah, that was a pretty long session, but I think that was illuminating, and I love to hear these views. Another big thing this last week was the budget, Manx budget. You all get to look through it. Even the press get to look through it beforehand. Yeah. Still, this thing, though, which June Watson's the only one that's standing up about, is you can't pick and choose any of it. You have to say yes or no.
But he wants to look at it from a forensic point of view. You get a couple of weeks to read it. I think from a lay point of view, which is what I am, I'm not an accountant, even though I have some qualifications in accountancy. I think at the end of it, I looked through it. I didn't speak in the budget. I think after the first 3 or 4 speeches, I felt most of my points had been covered. I think, and I didn't want to talk negatively on a half-empty glass. I wanted to try and find something positive. I think given everything we've gone through since March last year, I think it's a very good budget. I think we couldn't have got much better, because I think most people were expecting increases. And I think I will applaud the government again on Appendix 9. If people are saying about stealth taxes, something I'm very much against, but if you go on to Appendix 9, you'll see what fees are going to increase over the next year, which is absolutely right. So it's very clear, it's very transparent from the government. I think from a personal point of view, I think there's a lot of problems for the next Treasury Minister, whoever that person may be. And we talk about public sector pensions when they run out in 22-23, and the government will have to step in and find probably somewhere between around £46 million to start with from around 23-24. That's on top of the £46 million the government's already paying as the employer via the department, plus the 33 that's collected from employees these days. So that's one. We've also got the review of the NI. We've also got pressure coming from us in respect of our 010, and that's coming from Europe. So that's going to be quite difficult. And then on top
Did you find some stealth taxes? I'm sorry, you talk about raising all these... Yeah. Every year, that seems to be the way that normally goes through.
No, what actually happens is in years gone by, you don't get to know all the charges. So if we take example, how much social housing rent is going to increase, how much road tax is going to increase, and that's an interesting one because it's not in there. But if you take most of the charges are in there because government sets a target of income streams increasing by 2%. And it's really annoying for me, and it's frustrating for me when departments then increase things by 4%. And the amount of times in this year, sitting in 3 different government departments, when somebody will present a paper and they'll want to increase it by 6% or 4% because they didn't do it the previous year. And I absolutely vote against it every single time because the government says 2%. It's very clear.
You can't vote against anyone thinking that's a whole
problem. Well, I can in a department because I can lobby and I can fight to say, no, I'm not going to support a 4%. Now, if I'm overruled by my colleagues, that's fine. Right. But from my point of view, I will never, I'll never vote for something that gives a double increase on tax to people.
Let me get outside of the Tynwald bubble for a second. I mean, how much interest do you have in a budget? I mean, you're just interested about what income tax levels and how much you're going to pay at the end of the year, aren't you?
So, I mean, that's the main thing. Yeah. No, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to look at it. I'm interested in what else to say.
Yeah, okay.
But I had a week off. I booked a week off. I've been on staycation.
I have a copy here if you want.
I might have to have a peruse. I've been on staycation.
Let's try this one. How important is it to be on the Isle of Man because the taxes are low and the life is good and or would you go tomorrow if the opportunities were better somewhere else because of the tax and the things like that?
I mean, I think as an individual, you're in a good position tax-wise. Like, I mean, my mum's told me stories about, because she's from Ireland, and she was paying like 50% in tax, and she moved over here, and she was like, okay, so in this particular bracket, I'm paying 10%, and then 20%, and then it's just 20%. Like, I think we get a pretty good deal. In fairness.
Well, I mean, this was my exactly. This was my last budget. No, don't start.
Here we go. It's my last.
It was my, and I took the opportunity.
You've seen a lot of budgets.
Yeah, I have, and I took the opportunity to stand back. And the first thing I said in my contribution was I thought that Alf and his team had done a really excellent job, and I think we need to cast our minds back to the early days of the original close down when it looked as if all hell was going to break loose, and Treasury held its ground, held its courage, and kept going. And I took the opportunity to compliment Alf and his team on their performance. However, I then stood right back, and tried to address the budget from the standpoint of of what I've been in politics for, and where we are as I'm leaving and where we are when I came in. And actually it's the same place, because last year, before it hit the fan, I'd spoken about the dangers of a black swan event, and I got poked in the ribs with a stick about that. Oh no, come on, Chris. But in reality, a few weeks later, it hit the fan. So we have a situation as I end my political career where we've got some incredibly difficult financial challenges. And if you think about it, when I came in, it was just post-Lehman's, and the Isle of Man didn't just lose 200 million a year. In 1 year, it lost 200 million every year. And so the point I was trying to make was that you should always expect and build your structure and organisation against the backdrop of black swans. And the two things, following Alex's point and yours, the two things that really matter to us are keeping our tax base and regime competitive and attractive at the same time, and this is important, at the same time as delivering really first-class social and health and educational services. Now, this is important, that dichotomy, if you like, requires really careful analysis, and what it requires is that our governmental system and our structure and organisation is really efficient, and it's not, and it's still growing. And so as we move into the next administration, we've got a situation where government is still not only trying to do too many things, but is trying to do more things. And this is really dangerous. And that was the caution that I tried to point out to members, that government must slim down, must become more efficient, and must be more focused.
But their reserves are going well, and I think they're almost like, oh, good. You know, they bounce back. Let's spend a little bit more than we were intending to. But let's link this with the. Okay, pick up. Go.
Well, without most of those reserves are
more staff. Government's increasing.
No, what you do
they are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
But they need not to do that.
Well, but they are. That's the whole thing. They're spending money.
There are other ways of doing it, and I revert back to my manifesto of last time and the time before, and we still haven't achieved it. There's something of a growing recognition that, hey guys, we've got a problem here, but we haven't yet gripped it.
What would be a better way of doing it? Out of curiosity.
Well, oh gosh.
Good question.
Absolutely. So
have an answer to it rather than just, yeah.
So, yeah. Well, what we need to do is we need to streamline government. We need to put a significant number of functions at arm's length. We need to invest more fully in technology, thus making sure that there's less bureaucracy and administration, and the funds that we've then retained from that slimming down is directed more towards frontline services like teachers and medics and the like. And at the moment, we've got too many of our departments are what I would call conglomerations of functions, and we need to separate, I don't want to get too technical, but we need to separate operational delivery from strategic thinking, which we haven't done. And so we're in this sort of malaise and complex arrangement where departments are their own masters, and that's all got to stop.
My last part, I want to talk about tourism, so we'll keep that to one side. But were you nodding with that? I mean,
yeah, I agree. I think there's a full review of the structure of government is needed. I think we need to work out which services, and I think under the Manx Care system, we need to work out what services we're going to provide on the island, which services we're going to provide in the UK. I think it's very difficult because I do sit in government departments and I do see a lot of hard-working officers, but it doesn't get over the fact that there is going to be problems. And as you say, we've still got to, you mentioned about the reserves, we're still going to have to top them up as well. So all of these problems are going to have to be funded somehow. And the only way we can do that is by creating the environment in order to bring in more money to actually create jobs.
But isn't it going to be ironical that almost certainly the UK is so far in printing the money situation. They're going to be putting their taxes up, aren't they? I mean, they've
and I think you're absolutely right.
That help us?
And that's really worries me because they're over £400 billion dealing with COVID. We're £200 million, and we've been very fortunate we've been able to use a significant amount of reserves to get over that. But they're going to have to be replaced because there will be dark days to come. Now, what really worries me is when we start looking at our revenue that comes in through customs. And I wonder if that's going to be nipped at by the UK when they are really feeling the pinch. They're going to go to the Isle of Man, so we're going to try and lower that. So we could potentially have some real difficult decisions to make in the next few years. I hope it's not, but that's something I could see happening.
In the short term, I'm sure that, and I can't be sure, but one would expect the first agreement calculations to result in a reduction in the short term. It should thereafter pick up. But we mustn't be complacent about our reserves, because the bulk of those reserves are the National Insurance Fund. And as Rob and I know, that Alf's quite rightly, and we've both talked about this, we're migrating towards a significant national insurance review. One that recognises the fact that a wide range of people experienced support from the NI Fund in recent months. But the question is then raised, is everybody genuinely and fairly contributing into the NI Fund? And the answer to that is actually no. And that's going to be one of the changes. But I wouldn't rush your fences on thinking that the UK government will automatically slam taxes up as a response. I mean, they did that post the last major problem. I think they have to wait some time now to ensure that the UK economy accelerates out of the difficulties it is in, because until such time as the cost of funds accelerates due to inflation and whatever else, the opportunity has got to be used for them to get the economy growing.
Yeah, but the Isle of Man does well when other places have higher taxes, but they've been pulling this back all the time, haven't they? HMRC won't want to see the Isle of Man and the Channel Islands and anywhere else making a profit or doing better
we've still got Brexit to come through. I mean, that's something that's now been forgotten. But the UK has left the European Union. We still don't know the full effects of that yet. We don't know how it's going to affect us personally. So there is going to be a period of uncertainty. We've had that since the Brexit vote, but we've been waiting for the UK to get through the negotiations for us then to find out where we sit in certain things. But then they've had to deal with COVID, which has cost a significant amount of money. As I said, over £400 billion. That is still going to increase because the UK is still not out of this yet. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And then the UK has got its own challenges as well to deal with Europe, because Europe's going to be putting pressure on the UK as well. UK is going to be positioning itself probably more, and dare I use the word, more of itself as a tax haven to allow itself to open itself up to people. Yeah. And that's your problem. So, you know, one of our biggest threats could become one of our biggest competitors. You know, I would say we're an offshore jurisdiction, but a lot of people have already said that the UK could become the world's biggest tax haven in the future.
Rob's effectively arguing for my case in the sense that in order to maintain high quality or improve high quality social services and education on the Isle of Man, while still making sure that we keep our tax competitive, we are going to have to address the efficiency of government, which still has not been effectively done.
But that's also, though, Chris, that does open up that wider discussion around how do we deal with the long-term effects of the pension deficit, because we know that the pension payments for government staff are over £100 million very, very soon into the next administration. Now, that's got to be paid before we even think about bringing in a new nurse, bringing in a new teacher. And that is going to be half of the problem here. These are the costs that the Manx public don't see. And it's one that we're going to have to tackle at some point. But we need the number of workers. We need people working to contribute to help towards those payments.
I'm coming to you. You're the people who are going to be paying this all off, or whatever, as they say. You could have alluded to something, the next generation. But enough being done for you. I mean, Isle of Media must have been of interest, but that seems to all but I don't know, it has disappeared. It's
I don't know where that is.
No,
I don't know where it's gone.
That was a Department of Enterprise.
I tried to call a few people and.
Because that was looking. We haven't done very well, have we?
Phone
we were just too early. Netflix and things. If they didn't happen, when we were the film industry.
I mean, this is a point I was making pre-COVID, and I thought it was something that we needed to capitalise on when we kind of had that 7 months of freedom. And I mean, you've got to get the ball rolling on something.
You mean get everyone over here filming?
Yeah.
Films. But of course they wouldn't let anyone in.
I know, I'm biased, and
No.
there was restrictions, but I know you're talking about kind of a stepped approach, and I suppose key workers. I know making films. It's a tricky one because some people would argue not key workers, but then other people would argue, well, we spent the entire lockdown consuming content. Why aren't those content creators given the space?
Alex is not the first person to mention that to me.
It seemed like
We're talking about as you're saying, we are free to go around our business, so maybe we can create these bubbles to allow people, such for example in the digital industry, to come over and to actually do this filming here on the Isle of Man, because other places are completely locked down.
And even if they had to isolate prior to it, I mean, it's something that as a filmmaker, you're always hitting obstacles. And if someone was like, okay, well, we need to film and we need freedom to film, and the Isle of Man is saying we can do it, but we need 2 weeks isolation at the time, you would just build it into your pre-production. You would say, okay, well, this is the cost of that for the crew and the cast that need to be here for the 2 weeks. Cast are going to be bored out of their mind, but the crew, that's when we can do our pre-production.
They could have done I'm a Celebrity here, couldn't they?
Oh, easily.
You know, rather than go to Wales.
Stick them in Peel Castle.
But, you know, I touched on there about the film industry and
Give me an idea there, Paul.
When we had all that film industry here, it never worked particularly. But now you can't get studio space to save your life in London or anywhere because Netflix is buying up everything and Disney is taking everything.
But it did work for a time. I mean, I know there was a big thing about losing 30 odd million. But I mean, if you look prior to that, to the decade prior to that, it was like, what, 300 million earned, like raised? And I know
I was in every film at one stage just because I had an equity card.
Because you were there.
I had an equity card.
I did a couple.
I've never seen one though, but they never quite got that big hit though, did they?
My first extra job, excuse me.
Yeah.
My first extra job, it was the first time that I'd done anything like that. It was prior to me doing any sort of media stuff. I was like, oh, that'll be an extra, that's cool. Didn't know anything about kind of depth of field, anything like that. So I was there, acting my heart out in the background, and then I watched the film, and nothing behind the actor was in focus. I was a blur. I was like, I think that's my job.
And that made you go into the film industry and to learn your craft here.
Yeah, so that I can make myself.
I mean, there was a serious note on that because we did have for a while. Things were very tantalising that we were a media centre and we could get jobs. You could get jobs on film sets.
It was the structure of the financial arrangements behind.
Isn't that what I was getting to? The UK want that business themselves, and what we're saying, they go, well, hang on,
close the loophole.
Well, there's Rob's point about we actually have a competitor close to us now, and this is why we've got to be really clever about how we do things. We're still too clunky. We're still too traditional.
You going to say the S word yet?
No, I'm going to try. That's
silos.
Yeah, that's a swear word, isn't it?
I know. Well, you just get a ding, you get a little tick.
Well, I think, do you know something? Actually, sitting in free department, I'll actually agree with Chris. And it's surprising, and I have said it, so it's not something my ministers will suddenly go, oh my God, because it's actually right, because it's quite surprising when I sit in a DEFA meeting that I hear things about DOI, and then I go into DOI and hear something about DEFA. But I'll tell you something, as a member, I get the full story eventually, because I get both sides.
Well, I'm on the policy review committee, so I see it right across the piece.
He's the one that's on top of you all.
Yes.
Anyway, but no, fair dues to the current administration in a number of areas on this subject, so let's not be too much of a knocker. And that is that we had the significant health review that Alf instigated on health through Sir Jonathan Michaels, which was first class. And then soon after that, we had the education review, again, external, rather than internal review. But DOI is desperately in need of a major review. I mean, DOI is a basket case, frankly. And DEFA is in really serious need of review. Yes, it is. In relation to the arm's length arrangement that we need with regard to our regulatory services, which are in a mess, frankly.
Can we just DFI basket case?
He has to defend himself.
Yeah, there we go.
No, I'll be perfectly honest. I went into DOI and I was very nervous, I really wasn't too sure, and if it wasn't for Tim Baker, I wouldn't have gone into the department. I wouldn't have taken up a third department. I have to say that I've seen some amazing staff within there. I think frontline staff working their socks off. However, I think politically, and I think the structure within the department need to review. It's too late in this administration, and I think if Tim Baker went in as minister and had the right political team around him from the outset, I think you'll find DOI would have been a lot better this time from this administration's point of view. However, I will also mention that I think that opens up the wider discussion around actually having a look at the procurement process, having a look at the tender process, having a look at how we unveil some big projects. And I'm going to put a prediction. I think the first 12 months of the next administration, they'll be sat in committees, going through what went wrong with the promenade, what went wrong with the ferry terminal, what went wrong with other projects across the island.
Can't see that, can we?
And it's not.
You remember?
Well, I sit on the political board for the oversight of the promenade. I've seen incredible work done, as I've said, from the officers trying to bring this project to fruition, and it's hit problems along the way. And I think I personally would welcome that review at the end of this process.
I think it's very important for those who are listening to this programme and hearing me speak the way I do, in no way, shape or form am I criticising the officers and their efforts and their hard work and commitment in the departments. They are just placed in an impossible position where the structures are inappropriate for them to be able to deliver in the way they need. But there is no secret about all these major projects going wrong. You have to separate operational delivery services from big ticket capital projects, and there has to be a real competence at a distance from the operational divisions to achieve them successfully. We've just got a panoply of problems that have emerged in this and previous administrations where major projects have gone wrong.
Okay, well, we'll get on to tourism in the next section.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask you how you thought the budget was. I mean, you can obviously abstain if you don't want to say, but good budget. You voted for it, obviously. But
I think it was it couldn't have got any better than what we presented on Tuesday. But as I say, I think there's a few hidden problems that the next Treasury Minister will have to pick up.
Okay.
I couldn't say. I haven't
All
read
right,
it.
send that.
Ditto.
What? Yeah, with
It's not read it either.
No, ditto. We're wrong.
That was great. We'll talk about tourism and the last part if we're still talking.